You guys have a very technical courses here with OpenSSL, and I work with a lot of technical people, know a lot of technical people, but I'm not going to do a technical talk. I'm going to give you my experience working with OpenSSL inside a very large company. Maybe you've heard of it, Cisco Systems, right? Anybody heard of that place? I didn't. Thank you. Thank you. I was hoping for hecklers, so you guys are great. So anyway, at a minimum, you guys will be able to relax your brains a little bit and head out and go get some beer and talk with new friends. So does that sound okay? We'll try to get through this as painless as possible. There's some of my friends. I met a new friend this week, although I don't know if I want to. No? I shouldn't mention your name? Okay. All right. So I get to use the clicker. They said point this way. So let's see if that works. What do you know? Technology. So we're going to talk. This is just a little agenda, right? We have to do these. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but who am I? You probably know who the old guy is, right? So what is this mission and why is it impossible? The team, like with any good mission, you're going to have a good team, right? Ethan Hunt's got a great team. So we got to have these guys, right? So I can't do it. I just told you I'm not technical. Kind of, but not like everyone else. Lessons learned along the way. This is where we fail, right? I learned too late that failure is how you learn. So I finally figured that out when I got older, right? The goal was always you should have straight A's and be the best on the team. And I figured out quickly when I became an adult in the real world that you really learn when you fail and you take chances. So talk a little bit about those things. Takeaway, and number 7 there, which I think is something that we've glossed over in all of the talks that I've heard today. People talk about why, but I'd take it one step deeper on why. And the close is, of course, the close. So, sound okay so far? You guys all right? Needing a beer already, I can tell.
Yay.
There you go. Thank you. Good heckle. Thanks. So let me see. Here we go. So who is this old guy? I am getting older. Well, you can tell, right? This used to be a big, full head of rock and roll hair, but no longer. Worked for Cisco Systems now for 26 years, almost 27. No, actually, it's the other way. Almost 26, 25. See how bad I am? I was basically brought in to do a lot of testing because I'm a glass half full person. So when someone brings me something, I immediately look for the problems. I don't look at how great it is. That's just my nature. My daughter brought me papers, and I said, "You misspelled this word," and she had an A, but I was immediately. So that's just who I am. My wife keeps me grounded that way. She makes sure that I don't do that too much, but it helps in my job. So I worked for a lot of things, routers and switches, features, and all this kind of stuff, doing development and test. Worked on a team, a brand new team called the adaptation team. We call this like a special forces like team inside of Cisco, where we have special features that do not ever make it to the business. The business doesn't want to do it, doesn't have a big enough market, but we have a lot of people who want it. So we have public sector sales and things like this who want these features. And so we had what we called an adaptation team. We would jump into these teams. We would create the special features. We'd get them tested, automated, and then hand them back to the business unit. We got no money. They got all the money, all the glory, and we did all the work. So that'll come up again. Some government features, nothing super secret. Things like video start disabled. Like when you're doing a video call, you don't want it all of a sudden like popping up like where you're at, you know? So this was before all of the fuzzing and, virtual backgrounds that we have today. They actually had real backgrounds and they didn't want those things just popping up when you were on a video call, right? So those are kind of features that we were working on. That led me to what we're calling now the Common Security Module team. And what this team is, and that's especially relevant for this conversation, what this team does is we take OpenSSL, surprisingly, we basically fork it internally into Cisco. And this is not something new and not earth-shattering. But we add features, we take out bad things that we don't like, we disable things, we have default configurations that the teams that grab this stuff internally to Cisco, they can build it, and it's secure by default. In other words, it's not using, MD4s and 5s and, things like that. So, anyway, that's what we're doing now is leading common security module team along with other teams, adaptation team and some cloud stuff that we do as well. Now the important stuff, these are the important things. Is this going to work? This is my family. I've been married 46 years, 2 people, and it's kind of grown, right? I have a very great family, lots of diversity in my family. I have 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren. We love to travel in our motor home. That's a picture of our motor home there. And I love old Jeeps. I don't know if anybody else likes old Jeeps, but they are super cool. You can take them anywhere and beat them up. They're wonderful. And motorcycle riding is my passion. So I've been riding motorcycles since I was 2 years old. My father put me on a dirt bike, and that's my earliest memory, taking me around on a dirt bike on the gas tank. And ever since then, I've been riding motorcycles. So I started working at Cisco back in 1999, right before Y2K. You guys remember Y2K? The world was supposed to end Y2K. And so I moved up there with my wife and the kids, and everyone was scared about Y2K. And we're watching the ball drop in New York. You know how the ball drops, right?
I think most people weren't born yet here in the audience.
Oh, know your audience. Know your audience. That's probably true. So here's the thing about Y2K. It was a big event. Like the clock was supposed to run out on all the computer systems, and who knew what was going to happen? Well, we're sitting in there. We're watching the ball drop in New York, and my buddy's computer rebooted at exactly midnight, and we're all like, "What's going on?" That was it. That was all that happened. His computer rebooted, and that was it. I think he did it on purpose because he wasn't there and I was. But it was an interesting time. So this is where all this is coming from. My life. So here's the mission. We're going to get to the mission now. So I'm not this guy. I'm that guy over there, right? Just for clarity, I'm the good-looking one over there, right? But when I had hair. So it didn't come exactly like this, but you can kind of think of it this way. It was phased, but this was basically the mission. Hey, it'd be awesome if you and your team could help us with this issue that we're seeing in the businesses across Cisco. We want a single library, and it's got to be applicable to routing and to switching and to collaboration and security products and IoT and video, and it's got to do FIPS, and it's got to do common criteria, and it's got to be secure, and well, it's got to run on these proprietary iOSs, and it's got to run on XR and some fruity thing, I don't know, Mac or something, I don't know. Maybe I think I heard him talking about different CPU architectures as well. So please let me know what you come up with. I need to let them know how it's going next week, right? So that's kind of the problem for us. This is. Wouldn't you agree, Ryan? That's the problem, Norm. That's our problem. This is what we do on our team. All right. See if this thing's still working. So. Have you ever been pulled over by a police officer and he comes up and he's, and you're thinking one thing, but you're saying something else. You're thinking, but you're going, thank you very much, officer, right? So this is what I'm thinking. This is the way you feel when you have one of these types of problems. But, of course, here's what I said. And again, this is me. Sure, no problem, right? We'll figure it out. I got great people around me. We can figure this out. You guys ever experience that at all? No problem? Yeah. Anyway, so we had the mission. And like every impossible mission, like I said, I mentioned, you have a team. You have to have a team. I'll show you the current team, but I have to give kudos to the team that came before. Just much like the Mission Impossible movies, you get some team members that just, they go away. Our guys are fine. They're not, gone away. They moved on to other organizations, retired, whatever. Most of them are just retired. So they're in a much better place. That didn't sound right either. But anyway, so Holly Iverson, she's right here. Raise her hand, Holly. Andrew Karcher. We're going to have Mark Albert popping up here. We've got about Paul Farnsworth. They've got Helen. I call her the beast. She codes like crazy. You give her, I don't even know how much she codes. She's awesome. Barry Fussell, you'll see him around. Norm Ashley, as well as Ryan Hooper here. So just a little brief description. Holly's a PM. She really, really helps keep me straight and keep the team going, knocks down hurdles, things like that. Andrew Karcher, he's our algorithm testing expert. He works on ACVP, if anybody knows what that is. The automated testing for NIST through CMVP. He's an expert in that and does that. We run our own. We're a first-party lab. We run our own internal service that does that for us. Mark Albert, he's an automation guy who does all our merges and sync conflicts and keeps track of all of our branches, all those kinds of things. Don't let the smile fool you. This guy's actually he's got several patents, been around a long time, is a super good guy. Paul Farnsworth, automation expert. He's kind of our DevSecOps person. You guys know DevSecOps? I never liked the word, but because it confuses me, but that's just me. Helen, like I said, she's a coder like crazy. Barry Fussell, he's our principal engineer. Norm Ashley, he's a tech lead. And then we got Ryan Hooper, who's now working with OpenSSL part-time. So this is the team, the current team. We had other people like Pete Beal, like Tom Cheviak, and Steve Lang, and who else did we have? We had other people too who helped us. Jay Baker, even. So those guys, John Foley. John Foley was a big one. You may hear his name again sometime. So what's the plan? You need a plan, right? You can't do things without a plan, or can you? I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you get lucky. Let me see here. Where was I? Oh, I went further than I thought I did. So we decided we needed a plan, right? So, like I said, it came in waves, this problem. So the mission plan, just to reiterate, we have all sorts of problems here, right? We've got services, we've got solutions, we've got big boxes, we've got small boxes, we've got data center switches, we've got security devices, we've got telephones, we've got IoT devices, we've got video devices, we've got umbrella cloud services, we've got WebEx services as well, and new phones, new things happening all the time, right, within Cisco. And so, the question is, where do you start, right? So we didn't really know where to start. But fortunately for us, there was already a couple of efforts happening within Cisco. One of them was the adaptation team, as I mentioned before. And the thing that they noticed was people kept coming to them for the same thing over and over and over again, and that was FIPS. Help us with FIPS, help us with FIPS, help us with FIPS. And so at the time, it was 098. That's how old this problem is for us anyway. 098, and there was FIPS there. There was a FOM, FIPS object module, and then we went to 1.x. And the commitment from OpenSSL for FIPS got a little shaky, if anybody remembers. There was a lot of discussion, and I don't think they even really wanted to do FIPS much anymore. But as a business, you have to have FIPS, right? You got to do it. So that effort was going. The adaptation team kept saying, hey, we need a common FIPS thing. So that was one angle. The other angle was, because we noticed that, there was a couple guys who took an internal survey in Cisco and said, hey, they went to these product teams. Some of them didn't exist at the time, like Meraki or Umbrella, and some of those did not exist. So they went to these teams and they said, hey, what are you guys using for cryptography? And as it turns out, like 80% of the people were using OpenSSL. So it looked like we have a path, right? So we can help with FIPS, we can use OpenSSL, et cetera, and now we can a single team can now proliferate all of this stuff out across Cisco, right? And that was kind of the idea. So that's kind of where we started. Basically trying to get FIPS onto OpenSSL. Our internal fork, which is Cisco SSL, which is very clever, don't you think? It took us a long time, right, to knock that one around, Cisco SSL. Anyway, so that's kind of where we started. So now the lessons. What have we learned along the way? We've been doing this now internally since, I think we really started that in 2006 or 7 when we really started going, right? Lesson number 1, don't get ahead of your upstream, not too far anyway. And this is what drives a lot of conversation, Michael. This is why I was, we're going to talk later and stuff, but one of the things that people wanted inside of Cisco, the customers were wanting and asking for was TLS 1.2 at the time, right? Everybody wanted TLS 1.2, but unfortunately at the time there was no communities like there is now, right? Where you could give your feedback, you knew what OpenSSL was working on. It was all just kind of, as you heard Matt this morning talk about, it was Matt Caswell, email lists and things like that, right? And you didn't get a lot of answers about forthcoming features. And so we had so much internal pressure for TLS 1.2 that we went off, and John Foley, the guy that we just mentioned, he went off and coded up TLS 1.2 and then handed it to me and said, you need to test this. And I said, oh, okay. I don't know. So I started testing TLS 1.2. And all's great, right? We got TLS 1.2 on 098. And yeah, and it worked. It was great. It was fantastic. But the problem was that we had TLS 1.2 on 098. We gave that to, I don't know how many internal business units got that, how many products ended up using that, right? And then 6 months later, OpenSSL delivers. What do they deliver? TLS 1.2. And we're like, what the, that think versus say thing again, So don't get ahead of your upstream, because here's what the problem is. Now I've got all of these customers working on TLS 1.2. A feature is delivered, it's out to customers in the world on these products, and they're not agile, right? These products have a year's development time. Back then it was even worse than it is today. But some of these big routers and switches, they take at least a year to go through the development cycle. And to try to get them off our implementation so we don't have to maintain that and go on to OpenSSL's implementation was a nightmare. In fact, we had to end up supporting this thing for probably 3 years beyond what we wanted to support it for, right? We didn't want to support that. We've got a small team. At the time, it was half the size of the team that you just saw. It was 4 people, not 8, right? So that was a big, tough learning. We don't want to get ahead of our upstreams too much, right? And to be fair, we still do this sometimes, and it's still painful. We keep learning the same lesson over and over again. So I keep pushing. I do my best to push on that because we learned a very hard lesson here. So does that make sense? Why you don't want to get too far ahead of your upstream, especially if you're supporting a bunch of customers, because getting your engineering teams to move is very, very difficult. Very difficult. So that was one. Lesson number 1. This one seems like a duh. Automation is your friend. So let me explain this one a little bit. Back in the day, we had engineers who were building OpenSSL, and they would take the tarball from OpenSSL, and they'd make all their changes in it, and they'd make a new tarball with our specific changes in it, linking to our FIPS or whatever. And then they would put it out in a directory, some auto mount somewhere, right? And then I had some scripts that would go pick up this thing and test it against all of these routers and switches and stuff, right? And that was the extent of our automation. But then we also did some fuzzing, and we ran other things against it just to make sure everything seemed okay. And so it would take to go through the entire set of test suites on all of the platforms. You saw the platforms, right? All of these various platforms. It could take 2 weeks, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on what was in there, what the amount of changes, what they were changing, right? Then Heartbleed happened. You guys all remember Heartbleed, right? It was a seminal moment in everyone's life, in this room probably, in 2014. And although the OpenSSL team did a great job, they got a fix out right away. And then we would pick up changes from OpenSSL, and then this is along the time that Jenkins was first coming out. You guys know .Jenkins, right? Old stuff now, right? But Jenkins was just now coming out, and so we thought we would take use of this wonderful, fancy, magical technology and do these mirrors. We did all of this auto merging and syncing and stuff, and of course there was always some sort of manual intervention to fix certain things. But then we'd run the testing, and then we did a lot of consolidation and stuff. And we've moved on there from now, right? So we're now we're containers and virtual machines, and of course we're using, GitHub Actions, which is wonderful. We love GitHub Actions. We're moving all of our stuff there. It's just great stuff. But this enabled us now to be able, when we get a CVE, we get some sort of a fix or whatever we need to get from OpenSSL, we can turn it around in less than 24 hours versus 2 to 3 weeks. And even then, we can usually do it less than 24 hours, but we maintain all of those extra special branches that, the premium support branches for 1.02 and all those way back. And we have to, because we have customers that pay millions of dollars for boxes, and they don't just turn those off and buy new ones every year. And we have security SLAs that we have to maintain. So we still maintain all these. So we have pipelines that run, not 098, thankfully, but 102 and kind of beyond. So we automate everything we can possibly automate now. And I know that seems like a trivial learning, like everybody's like, yeah, no kidding. But it took us a while to get there. So that was something else. You guys remember the Kevin Costner movie where he was getting this message from somewhere to build a baseball diamond in his cornfield? And he kept hearing, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Well, we built it. This is from New York pictures, right, where they're building these big buildings. And all of the people that came, right? So we kind of felt like this. We built this thing internal to Cisco, 3 or 4 engineers, right? And now all sorts of products are using this, but they don't know anything about it. They have no idea how this works. They just depend on us to support it. So this has been a journey. We've moved from email support lists. Probably, is very similar to what OpenSSL's experience or anyone else, right? You go from email to to some other tooling, and now we use ServiceNow internal, and we have tickets that get opened up, and we have rotating support folks on our teams. Everybody will take a turn, right? We don't want everybody being overwhelmed with this. The one exception was we had a guy on our team. We hired him right out of college. His name is Andrew Felsher, and he was very precocious and really sharp guy. And we said, guess what? You get to do support for a year. That's all you're doing. And he did it for a year, and then he begged to get off. And so we gave him a break and got off. That's when we knew that's another learning. We got to share the load, right? We can't just pour it on one poor guy, right? So anyway, that was a learning. We actually did get a bunch of people coming, way more than we thought. Way more. This is another thing. I'm very passionate about this. I can't take credit. This is from Dora. You can follow her on LinkedIn. I'm extremely passionate about my folks that work on the team and work for us and work with us to help people. We don't want to wear people out. And Agile had great intentions, right? But I kind of feel like Agile was like, it's been abused, right? Agile is like you're on this wheel constantly and you're sprinting, and they say, oh, well, we only want you to do 60 or 80% of your bandwidth and all that. And that's not what happens, right? I mean, you get these, at least in our environment, you get these sprints that are piling up and the long list of user stories and tickets and things, and the support. You can easily wear your people out, right? And I don't care what methodology you're using. you're going to wear them out in our context. And so I very much enjoy this wheel. Do you guys does this resonate with anybody? James?
Yeah, absolutely. Protect deep work specifically.
Which one?
Protect deep work.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Can you, so it's protect deep work. Can you explain why, James?
Is it on?
Hello,
Ooh.
testing. Protecting deep work. So with development teams, especially, unnecessary interruption is just a productivity killer completely, and it can take many hours, if not days, for that dev to get back to that same point from a development perspective and also from a focal perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two aspects to that, and from my perspective, right, was the support thing. Right, if you're being interrupted all the time, so that's one of the reasons we kind of do a rotation so that we're not getting the same guys bombarded all the time with support. Now that's had limited success because we have guys like Norm and Barry, and everybody in the company knows who they are. Unfortunately, their public, emails are known, so they get pinged probably more than they need to. But that's one thing. The other thing that actually Cisco did, we can't take credit for this. They did what they call focus days, and they wanted no meetings. And you've heard of this in other companies, especially during the pandemic. They wanted no meeting days. So you have some day of the week or every couple of weeks where you're doing nothing but focusing on whatever it is you want to focus on. So unfortunately for Holly, when she first met me, I have a huge pet peeve here. And that is like useless work combined with bureaucracy. I hate taking the same, and hate's a strong word, but it's true. Taking the same data, putting it in a different format, giving it to one particular person, and it's the same audience, essentially. Right? The same people are going to all four of these meetings, and they see the data in four different formats, and it's the same data. Drives me nuts. Because they ask us to do it, and poor Holly, she got the brunt of that, and she still does. Poor Holly, I'm sorry. Anyway, and if you don't protect your team, right, you're going to blow them up. They're going to have more work than you can do, and eventually they're going to leave. So, and then your mission is going to fail, right? So if you don't protect your team, you won't protect your mission, and we don't want that to happen. So. Very passionate about that. Anybody wants to talk about it, I'll talk about that one all day long. Technology evolves, right? Anybody know what this thing is? Somebody's got to know. You guys know that's a qubit, right? I don't know anything about qubits, but I know it's a qubit. I looked it up on the internet. It's got to be right. Technology evolves. We had this thing called next-gen cryptography, which was essentially EC curves. And they called it next-gen technology, right? And so we had to work all our way through this, and you get taken by surprise sometimes. So this PQ transition has been, and Norm kind of discussed this in his talk, is a very difficult one when you don't know. There's too many competing requirements, and there's no one place to go get anything. And PQCA is doing one thing, and Open Quantum Safe is something else, and OpenSSL is doing something, and you're just and you've been asked as the cryptography team within Cisco to make sure that you're in a position to proliferate PQ to every product in Cisco almost, right? So that's a big deal. And so technology is changing, and you have to be able to adjust. And so we don't get too comfortable anymore. So that was learning. We always trying to move. This is a big thing right now, right? So I absolutely 100% agree, and this is what I was telling Michael Bench earlier today. There's more than one way to contribute, right? Way more than one way to contribute, right? You can contribute with donations, you can contribute with time, you can contribute in all sorts of ways, right? Volunteering. We're really dedicated. We're trying in our organization to turn the tide of things. For a long time, big corporations, and I would agree, did one thing. They took, right? And I saw a recent article that showed basically that they're taking even more now than they used to, and they're giving less. And I don't like that trend at all. I think if you're using the technology, you should be contributing to the technology for everyone. And so we're turning that around. That's why we're here. That's why we're sponsoring. That's why we're putting engineers on the team. We're wanting to get in the boat and row, right? And I could have put pictures where you're on these nice rivers, smooth, watery, glass water. But that's not the way it feels, right? We're in the boat and we're churning, right? We're all working very hard. The ocean's churning. The waves are coming. And we need to get in the boat and help. And I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. And we want to make things happen. And we're going to partner as much as we can partner with anybody to get things done. And not just for Cisco. It isn't just for Cisco. It's for the community. It truly, truly is for the community. Cisco does a lot of stuff on social justice and things like that, but internally in the open source, I think that we could do a much, much better job, and we're working on that. So, and so what's the takeaway? Is it working? All right. Inside Cisco, it does work. It works with a fairly small team. We're a very, very busy team. But I think together we've come to the top of the mountain. But the mountain's always moving, as I said, right? You have another mountain to climb. So we've not declared victory because we can't at all. We can't stop, but we think it's working. And the adoption inside of Cisco is pretty phenomenal, actually. We measure our adoption all the time, as you can imagine. And we have greater than 96, 97% adoption across the top 100 products that Cisco sells, right? And so we're a natural place to put PQ, right, or any new technology. DTLS 1.3, for example, to make that available to everybody, all the products in Cisco, which, by the way, get sold to companies who make that available to you and I. Right, so I think it's a wonderful thing to do, and we're really happy to be able to contribute back. So here we go. Let's go last kind of slide. So why? I mean, why do we do all this? Do we do it because we want to be famous? Do we do it because we want to be rich? Some people may get rich. If you listened this morning, some people will get rich off of the churn. Do we do it because we want fame? Some people will get some measure of notoriety in these circles, right? But why do we, even then, why? Why? What's the why? And I think it's because, very similar to Ethan Hunt, he says it a little darker than I do. We live and die in the shadows for those we hold close and for those we never meet, right? We do a lot of this because we care, right? And that's why we want to do it. We care. I mean, I care about my family. I care about, and I know you guys care about yours. I care about others. We have a common belief in security and privacy. Inside Cisco, they absolutely believe that privacy is a human right? It's a basic, fundamental human right. They've announced it. They tout it all the time. They believe it. We hear it all the time, right? So we have a common thing. And so why don't we take our common beliefs and our shared interests, right, and work together for the good of communities, right? All the communities, diverse communities around the world, right? We want to help. So that's really why I think we do it. It may not be for the money or for the glory, but it's certainly for the people, right? So, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for the talk. I was wondering, when you were mentioning you're patching or backporting some security fixes to old branches, like for how long you typically do that support? Like what's your typically end of life policy? Or do you even sell extended support and do this forever until money comes flowing? So
that's a good question, and I wish I had one answer. The problem is that for different products, they have different security SLAs, and this is something within Cisco, I've been complaining about for a long time. I think I have someone's ear now. There isn't a single security SLA across Cisco, where if you buy a Cisco product, that we promise to give you security fixes for 5 years, or 7 years, or 10 years. For collaboration, it's 10 years, right? So they've got product out there, And collaboration is call managers, phones, right? IP phones. They've got IP phones out there that are, 10 years old, and they need security patches and fixes, right? And so you've got that one on the long end, and then you've got the things on the shorter end, which are always on the cutting edge. Guys like Umbrella and those guys, some of these cloud services, right? They're always on the cutting edge. So we have to support the entire span, right? From 102 to 3.5, 6, and 4 whenever it comes. So. There's no one answer. I truly wish there was. That we could stop, at least stop one of our branches. So, anything else?
We have another question here. Can you wait a bit until the microphone arrives? Because we're recording. Thank you.
You talk about the adoption rate, so I'm wondering what are the remaining alternatives that you do not cover quite yet, right? Are those private, OpenSSLs, whatever? I'm just curious. Why not 100%, right?
Why not 100%? There are some products that don't make the top 100. We kind of concentrated on the top 100, despite what everyone in the world, I'm not dissing cloud or any of that stuff, right? SaaS and all this stuff. You still need routers, you still need switches, and they're still written in C. Right? And we concentrate a lot on that, and collaboration as well. While there's some people moving to Rust and Go, well, we still have to do OpenSSL in C. There's some older products that we just don't want. We don't want to do it. Right? We don't really care. Care is not the right word. Don't let that. Don't cut that out, please. There's some older products that it would be the engineering cost would just be too prohibitive to be able to actually go and do that. So we're pretty happy with the 95 and 97 percentages that we get all the time, and that's in top 100 products, right? And it's consistent. It's been that way for several years now. So, and we're still trying to get better, right? The cloud stuff we have a little less visibility into. But we're working to get better at that as well. So.
Thank you. Maybe there's still time for a very quick question.
Quick question?
Okay, then maybe.
Where are we going for beer tonight? Anybody know?
I think maybe this is a good moment to close the session.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for a
Sure.
really excellent talk.
Sure. Thank you.